Hello, welcome back to the stream. It's been a little while since I've done a video, but I want to get one done tonight. So if this is your first time, thank you for stopping by. If not, thank you for coming back and getting through this next session. So a few quick updates on the channel, where I'm at so far and such. So I'm still on Twitch, so you can follow me on Twitch TV. I am also set up a Patreon account, so if you want to help support me financially, that'd be a great way to do that. The benefit right now for my Patreon subscribers is early access. So once I finish recording video, I do a little bit of editing, not too much though, put on YouTube, and then my Patreons are able to get that link a couple weeks before it goes public. So if you want to get the latest streams and videos, you can be a Patreon member. What else? At the end of the stream, I will kind of go over some of my plans for the future. I have some ideas what I want to do next few videos. So if you're interested in what's going to be coming up, stick around for that. But for now, let's get into today's session. Last we left off, we just finished up some AWS DynamoDB integrations with Spring Boot. So all that was working fine. We were able to get it deployed to AWS, and all of the integrations all worked. We were able to test that and see some database operations go through. So that's good times. For today's session and this next session, hopefully next couple days, I'm going to deviate a little bit and talk through some Git items. So Git is our repository client manager kind of thing. And what I like to try to get to is having two repositories. So one would be with AWS and code commit, which is private, only I can access at the moment. But I also want to have all of the code and the repository on GitHub. Now it'd be public, so that way anybody that's following along can look at the code itself in GitHub that we've written and can reference that whenever you all need to. In order to get there, I need to do some Git changes. I'm going to do that on camera and kind of walk through those changes I need to do. It's going to be in two sessions. Today will be the first, and then the next one will be setting up the two repositories. So if you followed the channel, in the code originally I had a file that had confidential information of myself, so username, password kind of stuff. And I was using that to test with some integrations with Robinhood. Since I was the only one that had access to the code and to the repository, that was fine. I was willing to accept that risk, security risk. But now that I want to make my repository public on GitHub, we need to go back through and modify the Git history to where if you go to the repository, you won't be able to go back in history, recover those confidential information, and use that. And that's going to be today's session. It's going to be getting to Git, some of the nitty-gritty details, and do some Git history rewriting. All right. The only other thing to mention is we got rid of the confidentials constants class when we were able to integrate with the AWS parameter store, and that was a few videos ago. So if you're interested in how the parameter store worked and how we're using that in this application, go ahead and check out those videos. Otherwise, let's kind of look through what we have for Git, and I'll talk through a few different particulars and we'll get into it. All right, so first I'm on the AWS console. So we'll go to code commit. I'm logged in with our coder user account, so it has access to the code commit and things like that. So we'll go to our repository and we want to look at our commits. All right, so as you can see, we have, I believe I counted before, 25 commits. on the master branch. And these are from the very beginning of the repository all the way through to the most recent commit we've done. And we can use a visualizer to see how they've branched and such. And again, it goes to the very initial project setup. So our goal is to rewrite this and to condense it down to a single commit of all of the latest code, which would not include any confidential information. And we're going to do that by using Git Rebase. So it's going to take a couple quick minutes and talk through Git Rebase and how you compare that with Git Merge. And I have a few links up here. I will link in the description below as well. But I kind of read through these articles and gave a pretty good explanation. So if y'all are more interested, we can walk through this. But this first article shows difference between rebasing and merging. The overall goal is the same. So in this diagram, on the left side, you have commits. You have a master branch and a feature branch. And your feature branch is out of date from your master. So there's some commits on master that's not in our feature branch. The first option is we can merge these two together, right? And that's a Git merge. That's very common use of Git in order to combine some commits into another. So we have our master branch. In this case, the feature branch is being merged into the master branch. So probably the developer was done with whatever feature they were doing. They added some screen or some code and is ready to be merged into master and deployed. And this is what this diagram is showing. Rebasing is basically chopping off where it branched from and replaying those commits back on the latest commit of master. So you've taken off this branch over here and we've replayed those commits down here. So it appears as though we branched off here originally. All right. So we're going to use this rebase mechanism to rewrite our history. Another good thing to note here with merging, if there's any conflicts, so let's say we have file XYZ on master branch, file XYZ on our feature branch, and both have modified it in different ways, and there's a conflict. With Git, you have to tell Git how to resolve those conflicts. So it's not going to know, do I keep the changes from on master, or do I keep the changes that were made on the feature branch? So it's going to, you go through a process and say, I want to keep this change from this file and this change from this branch, and then it merges everything together. With the merge, all of this happens at a single point in time. So it takes all of the changes from master, all the changes from feature, and compares, and it gives you one time to resolve all those conflicts. All right. With rebasing, instead of doing it all at one time, it's going to play each commit one at a time to the branch. So it's yanked off master up here. It's going to put this commit and apply the changes from this commit. If there's any merge conflicts between these two, you have to resolve those conflicts. Then it'll go to the next commit and replay this commit on the previous commit. If there's any conflicts there still, then you have to resolve those conflicts. You keep going through and resolve all the conflicts till you have gone through all your commits for the branch. So quick recap, merge, you resolve conflicts once. Rebasing, you can resolve conflicts multiple times for each commit in your history. All right. And this article goes through some rebasing and merging. It's kind of a short article, so I recommend reading through it, and really understanding the difference between merging and rebasing is very helpful to know when to use one over the other. All right, so as mentioned, today's goal is to actually rewrite the history of our Git commits. So we want to manipulate the history to where all of the usernames and passwords I had in old files is no longer there in the most recent code, but I want to get rid of those commits completely. That way people can't go back in the history and recover that information. This article was from the Git SEM site. I'll also link this in the description. And this kind of goes through a lot of different options that you have. And the option we're going to use is an interactive rebase. So here we can say rebase feature onto master, and we'll replay the commits, right? You can give it the rebase command a flag for interactive mode and rebase on top of your own branch. Now this is what we're going to go through, so hopefully as we run the command it'll be more clear. But you're basically saying, if I'm on this feature branch, rebase this branch on itself, replay the commits. I'm going to tell you how to do those commits. All right, so the key here is you're manipulating the history, you're manipulating the commits in the same branch. You're telling Git what to do for each of these commits. And you have different options. So this is an example output that we'll go through. So in this example, there's 3 commits that he's manipulating. He's starting at the head, so the very top part of the branch, the most recent commit, and going down 3 commits. So this is, let me think through this. So the most recent is on the bottom, the closest to the source trunk or source branch is on top. So this is the oldest commit. This is the newest commit. All right. So in this case, you have these 3 commits, and it gives you a series of options on what you can do to each one of these commits. By default, it's set to pick, and all that means is use that commit. Don't do anything different to the commit. Just take it as is and apply those changes when you go through the rebase. Another option is you can reword the commit message. So it takes the commit, all the files has changed, all that fun stuff from the commit. But if you have a typo in the message or some other reason you want to change this message, you can use Reword and edit the commit message. All right, so I've used that quite a bit if I needed to fix little issues to make it more clear on what the commit was for. So you can edit commits as well. I don't know if I've ever had to use this one before, so I won't really dive into details on that, but as an option. The next 2 is really what we're going to be doing. Squashing is basically going to take, if you have these 3 commits, you pick these 3 to squash, it'll put all 3 commits and combine them to a single commit, and you can have your commit message what you want. All right. Fix up is similar. It combines commits up into one, but you discard the commits log message. So if you did pick fix up, then it keeps this message and it combines all of these changes, all these commits into the single commit. So it combines all those changes to a single commit, and it keeps the name at the top for the commit message. Another useful one is D for drop. So if you know you have a commit that you just don't want, maybe it had a bug or some issue, or it was a quick commit to put in some logging or some debugging, you don't really need that commit anymore. You resolve whatever issue in a different commit. You can drop that commit completely and it'll go from one to the next. So it'll go from this guy, it'll ignore this commit, then it'll go to this guy. All right. And this kind of goes through a lot more stuff. This section is also interesting. So you can also reorder your commits. So if you want to group, so say you have a single repository like we have, right? And you have a backend and front end, and you have lots of commits with backend, then lots of commits of front end, and they're interspersed between each other. So you have some backend, front end, backend, backend, front end, backend, front end, front end, in that order. You can reorder the commits to group all of your backend changes together and then all of your front end changes together if you want. And you can just say, take this guy, put it down here, and this guy up there. You can put in whatever order you want. And then after you do that, you can then squash them or fix them up and combine them all to one. So that's a pretty common, shouldn't say common, it's a good use case. If you have, again, backend, front end, backend, backend, front end, reorder the commits and then squash them all down to a single commit to where you have one commit for backend, one commit for front end, and then that's all your changes for your feature. All right. Hopefully that is making somewhat of sense to you guys. This is getting more into the nitty-gritty details of Git, getting more advanced stuff, but any questions, comments, concerns, just shoot me a message in the comments section or in the Twitch chat, and we can go over more details, and I can answer any questions on YouTube comments as well. And this last article is just a more clear way to go through the Git rebasing to squash them in history, and goes through some examples and such. So with all that said, let's try to manipulate some history. All right. So I have a command console open. I am in our repository. I was kind of messing around a little bit ago. So I can do this thing real quick. All right. First, do a Git Status to see where I'm at. So I'm on my develop branch and it's all clean, no changes. So we're ready. What I want to manipulate is the master branch. So I want to do a git checkout master, git pull. This will make sure my local repository has all of the commits from master. Now it's out of date, so now it has all of my latest code. So if I do a git status, I'm on branch master, I'm all up to date. All right. Next is to start the interactive rebase. So it's git rebase -i for interactive. I need to tell it which commits in my current branch I want to manipulate. So I want to start at head, my most recent commit, and go down 25 commits. And this should be my entire history so far for this repository. Well, need a single revision. So let's see if I can do something a bit more simple. Head tilde 3. All right, that worked. So exit out that. Maybe that's off by 1. I need to do 24 commits. And give it a minute and it should come up. All right, so just like the site, the different articles, this should look somewhat familiar now. This is sort of a VI or Vim input. So it's colon to go to commands, Q for quit, WQ for right quit, arrows to go back and forth, I for insert, all that fun stuff. So it's a Vim interaction. And we can go down, and these are the commands that we've seen we can choose to do. So what I'm going to do is take the first commit and have be pick. And then the rest of these is going to be fix-ups. So you can spell out fix-up, or you can just do F for short. I'm going to fix up all of these. So all this is doing is going through each one and combining it to the one before. It's going to take this commit, it's going to go down here, see it's a fix up, it's going to push all of the stuff in this commit up into the previous commit, go to the next one and push this one up, so on and so forth. Since we chose fix up, it's going to ignore whatever commit message we put in here. All right, and a quick comment again, this is Vim, so how I got into editing mode is to hit the I for insert, and that allows me to use backspace to delete things, type to insert characters, all that kind of stuff. Now that I'm done with that, I'm going to hit escape to exit out insert mode, colon WQ for write and then quit. And now it's going to go through and do all of those rebasing. I don't believe it'll prompt me for changing the commit message since we did fix up. If you did reword or squash for any of those instead of fix up or pick, then it would go through, and once it got to that section, it would come up with another Vim interaction, and you can change or amend the commit message. Then right quit from that, and it'll go through, and if it sees another reword or squash, it'll repeat the process. And it gives you some output on what it is rebasing. It's behind my little tag for Twitch, but it says it's rebasing. It's on 11 of 24. So it's going through each one of those commits and replaying them on top of each shelf as it goes through. And it's about halfway done, so give it a few minutes and hopefully it will be complete here. So while this finishes up, it's on 19 and 24, so it's almost done. Since we are doing some major Git rewriting of history, you need to be very careful on how you do this. one of the things we need to do now is force a push up to the remote. So it's going to say, hey, your history, your hashes for all these commits does not make sense with what's on your remote. So it's going to give you an error saying, I can't do that. You can force push and say, this is my local branch. I want to force the remote to match. By doing that, it's going to force it, and it's going to make the remote match what your local is. If you've messed something up and then you force push out to your remote, there's no way to go back. So your remote is manipulated. It has been forever changed. So if you have another developer go up and he's going to pull that down, then it's going to be all of your forced changes you've pushed up to that remote. All right. So Git Status. We're still on master. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah. I'm going to do something real quick and do rebase -I head tilde 2 just to see if I have another commit left. No. All right. Now I'm going to do a git push -m rebasing master. Actually, we won't do a message. So git push. And again, here is telling that it's not able to do that. So it gives some hints. So it says, hey, your remote hashes don't match up where your local is. Is there commits you haven't pulled down, so on and so forth. So what we're going to do is say git push --. There's two different forces. There's force and force with lease. Force with lease is marginally safer than just force. It will check to see if you do have some out-of-date stuff, and if you do, then it won't force that up. For instance, what would be a good example? You're on master, you've branched off, you have your feature branch. Another developer has merged something to master, right? So it's your feature branch is behind your master. So your master has some things on it that your branch didn't have. So when it does this force with lease, it's going to check and make sure you're not going to lose any of that stuff, new stuff. And if it is, if you would lose stuff, it will abort and not let you go through with it. All right. Just -- force, doesn't matter. Whatever you have locally, you're going to make sure the remote has as well. So we'll go ahead and do git push force, and we'll see if this goes through. So it looks like it forced an update to our remote. So let's go back to our console, refresh. And now our history just has 2. So it did keep our initial commit. It wouldn't let me go back and rewrite that. But now we are down to a single commit. If we look at our code, let's see if we kept all of our stuff. So it looks like we have pretty much everything. So we have all of our different things we've been doing. We have some constants, our request and response. Yeah. So our master now has everything. So that all seem to work successfully. All right, so let's look at, probably should have done this before, but let's look at our repository. Let's do a pull request now from develop into master, compare these and see if there's any differences. So you can't merge in until it's resolved. So it looks like it's now seeing all of these as differences, which is fine because we've manipulated our Git history, right? So what I'm going to do is recut a new develop branch off of master. All right, so I'm going to go to my branch, develop, delete branch, cannot be undone, that's okay, delete. So now I have my master branch on my remote. All right, so one moment. So let's go back to our console. Let's try to do that. Should have done that before, but all right. So now I'm still on master. My remote no longer has the develop branch. My local doesn't know it's been deleted, right? So my local still thinks there's develop branch. Another command I can do is pruning. So git remote, the remote I want is origin. I want to prune. Dash prune. Well, dash prune. Or not. Oh, wrong order. Git remote dash prune. Now origin. Well, boo. And then switch P. Pruning. Git. It's probably something silly. Git prune command. I just want to see the actual prune command. All right, maybe that did it. It's been a while since I've done a prune, but all right. No. Check out master. Let's see. Where's prune in here? Cloning it, add bisect log branch commit diff. All right, I'll look it up later. Well, we'll just do it this way. Git branch -d for delete, develop. Git status, still on master, git checkout, develop. All right, so switch to develop. It's a new branch. Now if I do a git push, it should not allow me. Oh yeah, it tied it together, that's fine. So now I have a new branch develop. All right. Let's go back to you, refresh. And I have my develop. Do you have my history? Commits. Yeah, that's fine. And if I go to develop, do you have, you have all the things. So you did not do what I told you to do. All right. Branches. Develop. Delete branch. Delete branch. All right. Git status. Git checkout master. Git branch -d develop. Delete a branch. Git pull. Okay. Git prune. Git mode. I'm sure there's a way to do this. All right, there we go. That's the command. So git remote prune origin. So I've pruned off my develop tag, for lack of a better word. So now git status. So I can do git branch develop. So create a new develop branch off of master. Git checkout develop. Git push, and now it doesn't know what my upstream is. So I made it locally a branch and doesn't know what the remote branch would be to push to. So I'm doing is telling it to push. I'm going to set my upstream tie to origin and call the branch develop. Now I have a new branch set up. Go back over here, refresh. If I dive into my develop branch, look at my commits, I only see my 2. So at this point, oh, thank you. So at this point, I have changed the Git history. I've repushed and forced a push up. And now I am able to share this code without anybody being able to look into the history to look at my password and stuff and the old confidential constants class that we made. So just a quick recap on everything we did today and what we're going to be doing next session. So Since we got rid of the confidentials constants class, I'm wanting to make this repository public. I could try to do that via policies within AWS and make the repository public for people to access and share the link and all that fun stuff. Instead, my goal is to host the repository both on AWS and keep that private and have that be what the pipeline triggers off of and all of that kind of build stuff. And also have a GitHub account where I have it hosted on GitHub and it'll be public and anybody can search for it and look at the code as we develop. In order to do that, I need to go in and manipulate the history, as I said, to get rid of my passwords and stuff that we saved. I didn't want anybody going through the history. Not really sure who would take that initiative, but didn't want anybody going through the Git history and recovering my password to my Robinhood account. So we went through and I kind of talked through the beginning of the stream, a little bit about Git rebasing versus Git merging. So if we have commits, a merge combines the commits into one, a rebase chops it off and reapplies the commits one at a time to where you're rebasing it onto. From that, we went through and looked at the Git SCM site on rewriting history. And part of that, you can use an interactive rebase and rebase a branch on top of itself and go through how many commits you want and what you want to do at each commit. So I kind of talked through some of the options with pick and reword, squash, fix up, so on and so forth, and what each one of them did. Next, we went to our console and I did a interactive rebase and I did a fix up, fixing up all of the commits up into one. So the top one was pick, and then everything else was F for fix up all the way through all 24 commits. Since it manipulated the Git history, the hash codes for the commit was different than the remote. So the remote, it looked like I had stuff that was not in my local that was in the remote. And the way to address that is forcing a push. So it's saying, even though the hashes don't line up to what's in the remote and what's in my local, I know what I'm doing. I want to have my local and force my local changes up to the remote. Ignore whatever warnings. I know it's dangerous to do, but take what I have and I'm going to force my changes up to the remote no matter what. And I talked through a little bit on the two different types of force. There's a plain force, which is kind of the nuclear option. It guarantees whatever's my local is going to go to the remote. And there's also force with lease, which is a little bit safer, but not too much safer. And that basically means if I was behind by a few commits and then detected that, it would not force up those changes. In that case, it would be a scenario where I'm developing, I branched off of master, a feature branch, another developer was doing some work and they merged onto the master branch. I did not have those latest changes yet, so I'm behind the most current master commit. And so since I'm behind, it would not allow me to force up my changes unless there's no conflicts. And that, again, is a little bit more safe because if there were conflicts, if the fellow developer had a bug fix they put in, I don't want my force push to remove that defect fix. All right, so that's pretty much our changes today that I want to get through. And the next stream, my goal is to set up a second repository on GitHub. I don't want to mess with multiple branches, multiple remotes, pushing in one and then pushing on the other. So my goal is to get it set up to where I have both the remotes in Git, one for GitHub, one for AWS, and then I can do a single Git push, and it'll push to both remotes at the same time. So then I can do my development, Git push, and it'll go to both GitHub and AWS. So that'd be our next session. After we get that set up, I'll have the GitHub link in the description. That way, as each video comes up, you all would be able to go through and look at the code itself and see everything we've done so far. So that hopefully will help folks out. And then after that, the direction I want to go, we have our Spring Boot application. We have some DynamoDB integrations that all seems to be working fine. The next piece is adding in a front end. I'm not a front end developer. That's not my specialty. I've done full stack, so I know enough about front end to be dangerous, but I want to dive into that going forward. So my goal is to take a couple videos, I'll probably use Vue. I've been going back and forth between Vue, Angular, and React. Those are the three main frameworks out today. I think Vue seems to be what I would probably go with. I've been chatting with a few colleagues and they recommend Vue over the others. So I trust them. So I will go through and delve into Vue a bit. Our goal would be to get a simple Vue app and be able to run that locally for a video, have it come up. It would be in the same code base as our current code. It would be in the same repository. Once we get it to come up locally, we're going to work on upgrading our pipeline to have it be deployed onto AWS so we can look at it on AWS. Then we'll be working on some integrations and updating our front end to talk to our back end, call our testing endpoint to make sure everything's working, add in some buttons and stuff for that. Be able to do lots of fun stuff at that point. I'm going to be looking into Auth0 for social media login. So I'm going to go through that once we get that far. And I'll have some videos on signing up for Auth0, how to integrate it with our application. So it'd be our front end. You can sign in via Google or Facebook or whatnot. After we get that, then we can do some more fun front end stuff with adding in integrations for Robinhood stuff. So right now we only get a credential that we want to use to test our integration with. After we can have the social media login and each page is specific to a user, then we can more safely add in additional calls to get account balances and put in trades and sell orders, buy orders, things like that. We'll add in the backend supporting calls to Robinhood. We'll probably do some refactoring and growing with that. And then we'll put in the front end pieces in order to tie it together to where you can sign in with Google. You'll see your account balance. So you can put in a buy or sell order for whatever ticker, for whatever amount, and it'll go to the back end. It'll execute, or we won't execute the trade. We will send a API call to Robinhood and say, hey, I want to put a buy order in for this stock or a sell order, whatever you want, and it'll go ahead and do that. So that is sort of where we're at as far as where we're currently and where I want us to get to. So again, fun times. If anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, just let me know. If you all want to support financially, Patreon will be in the link below. If you want to watch my streams live, they're on Twitch. I still have my blog. I'm trying to get up to date with the latest videos. So check that out. I believe I'm up to the logging videos on my blog, and that's a written format, basically a transcript of the video. Another fun endeavor I'm going to start going through. I'm in the process of getting green screen to make the background not be distracting. So it'd be more of just my outline and then more of the screen, so there's less clutter on the screen. So I'm excited about that. And then the last change to mention as far as the channel goes, I have a lot of hours now on just everything we've done up to this point. I know it's a lot to go through, and there's a lot of figuring things out, kind of like we did today, a lot of dead time, things like that. So what I'm going to do is go back to the very beginning and refilm things. It won't be live, it will be refilming, you'll be editing a bit more and having everything be more concise. So it won't be live coding, but it'll be going through what code we've written, what its purpose is, how are things tied together. It will be diving into some of the code and saying this is what these classes do, this is how they call each other. It will be things like how we set up the database, the steps we took, what it's going to be used for, what accounts we've set up in IAM. So it'll be an IAM overview video up to date to where we are today. And I'll go through what IAM is and be a lot more condensed videos on each of the different pieces we've been putting in. So hopefully y'all will enjoy that and be just a bit more, again, condensed video on all the stuff we've been doing. So with that, I think that is all for me for today. So if you all have watched this through, thank you very much. Subscribe if you haven't already. Comment, like, all that fun stuff. And next video we'll get to more Git magic and get to repository setup. Thank you all and have a good evening.